there's two big pieces of news that I wanted to share right off the bat. Today is Tuesday, June 13th, 2017. It's 4:41 a.m. So this is from AlJazeera.com, and the headline is, Hundreds Suffer from Food Poisoning in Camp Near Mosul. Okay, so there's about 750,000 people who have been displaced because of the ISIS and the Iraq War and all the Middle East conflict. And in this camp that's outside of Mosul, which was the scene of the St. Patrick's Day massacre where 300 Iraqi civilians were killed by American airstrikes, there has been hundreds that suffer from food poisoning. They had arrested the cook, but they're in a camp. There's not much food. There's famine. Now they're spreading this food poisoning. You have Abbas, the fucking Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, who had those fake fucking elections, not a month ago. And then that's who Trump is going to negotiate with. That's who leads Palestine to the rest of the world. The Palestinians hate Abbas, and they hate the Palestinian Authority because they got their activists in the West Bank as well, but Gaza. So Israel has approved electricity cuts for the Gaza Strip. So you have the Palestinian Authority who's saying that they're only going to pay for 70% of the electricity, and since Israel controls every single fucking thing in Gaza and the West Bank, the food, the water rations, the electricity, since they can't afford the entire bill, then Israel was like, well, fuck Gaza. Well, you have people who's on life support. There's children. There's infants. This is the town of Bethlehem, right? Oh, little town of Bethlehem, we're cutting off your electricity. No more. I don't know. They're having schools, welfare, cooking, and university, electricity for all your aspects of life, for heating and cooling and heating up your water. There's a ton of things that people need electricity for in the region of Gaza because it is controlled by Hamas, who are the legitimate democratic leaders. They were elected, and their attacks are generally defensive. If they've been doing offensive strikes the whole time, then how come, this conflict's been going on for fucking decades? So apparently, they have a peacetime. So this is because of the United States. Again, the United States, we defend Israel no matter how, it's a concentration camp. Impeachment proceedings begins in the House, in the Judiciary Committee. The Judiciary Committee is the one that brings forth the articles of impeachment for the House to vote upon. And then only a simple majority is needed in order to begin those impeachment proceedings. So to recap what I had talked about before, when you analyze the timeline, when you actually see that by the time Trump is impeached, which can only happen after the midterm elections after November of next year, and that means President Pence will get in there, in January. I was thinking about this. Anybody, as soon as Trump is impeached, run against whoever, run against Pence, declare your candidacy. Bernie, Jill, Gary, who the fuck, Tulsi, who the fuck ever. That's when you announce your campaign. As soon as Trump has been impeached, say you're the president. Declare it. I'm saying if Bernie Sanders had jumped into the presidential campaign the same time that Hillary had jumped into it, because she was first in the 2016 race, on the Democratic side at least, she had jumped in April the 12th. So therefore would have left about a 3-month and 12-day window of opportunity for Mike Pence to be president, unchallenged, unimpeded, without an opposition party. But I was thinking, fuck, why would you wait 3 months? It's only 3 months prior to this big-ass impeachment, this historic impeachment would happen. If this historic impeachment happened, then you should declare your presidency that fucking moment. That fucking moment. Anybody who is privy to the theater of politics, that is the ideal time to throw your hat in the ring. So Bernie declares it as soon as Pence is president. Bernie's going to be, everything that Bernie says is going to be reported in the news, the exact opposite. I think it's important to understand that, because if Bernie Sanders is running against Mike Pence and you know that the presidential election is only 2 years away, can you hold your breath? America, hold your breath. Mike Pence isn't, he won't give us single-payer health care, but when the opposition party, pushes for it and he vetoes it, well, then he's just doomed his own candidacy, and we just know that in 2 years we're going to get single-payer health care. So that goes without saying. That goes without saying. Single-payer health care is going to come by in 4 years regardless. So, I think that Mike Pence doesn't even have those 3 months. You're going to have people who's going to be running the moment that impeachment happens. So we can learn how huge, of an ordeal an impeachment proceeding by looking at history. A lot of people keep on just like brushing this aside, like, well, you impeach Trump, then Pence is briefly the 3 important impeachment proceedings that we've had against the, American presidents. And 3 presidents have been touched by the impeachment proceedings: Bill Clinton, Andrew Johnson, and Richard Milhouse Nixon. Nixon! The U.S. has never had a successful Senate conviction after the impeachment, because that's what it takes. You need the conviction after the impeachment. House impeaches, Senate convicts, then you kick the bum out. Bill Clinton and Andrew Johnson were both impeached, but neither were convicted by the Senate, so neither one of them lost their jobs. Both Bill Clinton and Andrew Johnson were acquitted of all charges. Andrew Johnson had his job saved by 1 vote by Edmund Ross, Senator Edmund Ross, A Profile of Courage. JFK wrote the book Profiles of Courage, and Senator Edmund Ross, was given credit for saving the Union. He went ahead and defended Andrew Johnson, and so Andrew Johnson was not kicked out on his ass by the radical Republicans by 1 vote. And it actually turned out that he had, been bribed. So not a very, good, courageous man. Edmund Ross, you're not courageous, okay? Fuck you, Edmund Ross. Taking bribes. Fuck Andrew Johnson. So the articles of impeachment are the set of charges that are drafted against a public official to initiate the impeachment process. So an article of impeachment is the charge. This is the crime. There were 11 charges, 11 articles of impeachment against Andrew Johnson. All of them had to do with the Secretary of War. The radical Republicans, they like Edwin Stanton. Republicans like Edwin Stanton as the Secretary of War, and Andrew Johnson didn't. Andrew Johnson preferred Lorenzo Thomas as the Secretary of War. So all about the Secretary of War, which is today called the Department of Defense, the Secretary of Defense. It would be James Mattis. But before the, Department of Defense, it used to be called the Department of War. War Department. So it would be the Secretary of War. The Secretary of Defense, James Mattis. Secretary of War, James Mattis, same shit. So I love the radical Republicans. Charles Sumner, Thaddeus Stevens, the rest of the little rascals. Andrew Johnson, however, is a piece of shit. He's the reason why Reconstruction failed. It's all his fault, so fuck you, Andrew Johnson. Fuck you. Once it was suggested that Jefferson Davis should be hung for his part in the rebellion against the United States of America, but Andrew Johnson, he fired back, or maybe we should hang Thaddeus Stevens. Oh, that a burn? Okay, so he's from Tennessee. Big fucking shocker, right? Andrew Johnson of Tennessee. And instead of hanging the leader of the Confederates, he says, why don't we hang one of the congressmen, one of the radical Republicans, right? That's totally fucked up to to say hang one of the Union members instead of the Confederacy when you're the President of the United States, and then to suggest murdering Thaddeus Stevens. Okay, so my loyalties lie with the radical Republicans. The radical Republicans had passed a federal statute called the Tenure of Office Act as a way to keep Andrew Johnson from firing Edwin Stanton as the Secretary of War. Andrew Johnson of Tennessee, not giving a fuck about Lincoln or the radical Republicans' vision for Reconstruction. Confederate sympathizing, low-life piece of shit, Andrew Johnson. He fired Edwin Stanton and replaced him with his own man, Lorenzo Thomas. That set off the impeachment proceedings. Every single one of these articles had to do with this situation. So the 11 articles were varied. Some of them had to do with specifically that one got fired and then the other one was replaced. There's 11 of them. Another article had to do with the property and the money of the War Department. So think about the military, all that property and the money that's involved in that. And then another had to do with the control of all of America's armed forces. So here's Article 8. It's kind of lengthy, but to give you a sense of what the length of impeachment, what the language of impeachment sounded like in the 1860s. Article 8. That said, Andrew Johnson, President of the United States, unmindful of the high duties of his office and of his oath of office, with intent unlawfully to control the disbursements of the monies appropriated for the military service and for the Department of War on the 21st day of February, in the year of our Lord, 1868, at Washington, in the District of Columbia, did unlawfully and contrary to the provisions of an act entitled, an act regulating the tenure of certain civil offices, passed March 2nd, 1867, and in violation of the Constitution of the United States, and without the advice and consent of the Senate of the United States, and while the Senate was then and there in session, there being no vacancy in the office of Secretary for the Department of War, with intent to violate and disregard the act aforesaid, then and there issued and delivered to one Lorenzo Thomas, a letter of authority in writing in substance as follows, that is to say, Executive Mansion, Washington, D.C., February 21st, 1868. Sir, the Honorable Edwin M. Stanton, having been this day removed from office as Secretary for the Department of War, you are hereby authorized and empowered to act as Secretary of War in interim, and will immediately enter upon the discharge of the duties pertaining to that office. Mr. Stanton has been instructed to transfer to you all the records, books, papers, and other public property now in his custody and charge. Respectfully yours, Andrew Johnson. To Brevet Major General Lorenzo Thomas, Adjutant General, U.S. Army, Washington, D.C., whereby said Andrew Johnson, President of the United States, said Andrew Johnson, President of the United States, did then and there commit and was guilty of a high misdemeanor in office. A high misdemeanor. It's not a felony, but it's like a first-degree misdemeanor, right? So in the very beginning, that was a really long-ass run-on sentence. The major part that I said about, essentially it was just about the books and shit, right? That you took all the books and you took all the papers. And then it also mentioned directly that there was no vacancy in the department, but then it was. So it was, it turns out later on that the Tenure of Office Act is declared unconstitutional. So perhaps that's what Andrew Johnson was thinking. It was a statute, so I don't know. The House, I wonder why it was unconstitutional. Can you not change the Constitution with a statute like the War Powers Clause? You can't. Johnson got impeached. He was impeached. The House voted to impeach. Now it's up to the Senate. But the Senate didn't convict, right? Saved by Senator Edmund Ross, Mr. Profile of Courage himself. I mean, he got paid off and he took all those bribes. But what politician today doesn't take bribes? And bribes is actually a way, wait a second, we can impeach every single one of these assholes. Wait, you took a campaign contribution? That's a fucking bribe. All right, now you're impeached. Everybody that's accepted corporate donations from here on out, get the hell out of here. So the House impeached Andrew Johnson, right? But Mr. Senator Edmund Ross, after being bribed, said, you know what, Andrew Johnson, I think he might be an okay guy. Yeah, he was corrupt up until I got this stack of cash. Now I don't think he's corrupt at all. Senator Edmund Ross, I'm not for sure. Sounds like a name from Iowa. He took a bribe, but he very well could have turned that situation around, right? Hey, they're offering me this bribe. They said I have to take it or this or that. And, man, that would have put the nail in the coffin, and good. We would have, kicked fucking Andrew Johnson out. Reconstruction failed. So, Lincoln had the Civil War, the slaves were freed, black people had freedom, and then Andrew Johnson set the wheels of history in motion to where eventually Abraham Lincoln's experiment failed in 1877. So I don't, we're supposed to think that Abraham Lincoln won the Civil War, but he got shot and killed, right? So, and then a Southern sympathizer became president right after that. So the South was the first and last shot of the Civil War, but they still lost. Confederate monuments that are be taken down, but there is a lot, Dixie, the Southern pride is like, it's, the Confederate flag is tied in with the culture of the South. And so Kentucky was said to have seceded after the Civil War because they kept on re-electing all these Confederate fighters as governors and senators and representatives. And so, Andrew Johnson, fuck Andrew Johnson. That's what I'm trying to say. Fuck Jefferson Davis. Fuck Andrew. You got Beauregard, right? Jeff Beauregard Sessions. So after the 3 articles of impeachment was voted on by the Senate could see that they weren't going to get all the necessary votes to win, so they stopped the trial, and Andrew Johnson was free to go acquitted of all 11 charges. So they got the picture, right? Once you failed 3 articles, they all had to do with the Secretary of War. And I agree that Andrew Johnson's impeachment seems like it was partisan, but he was also a piece of shit who was deserving of the radical Republican treatment. I wish they would have picked a better issue, a more clearly criminal issue. They blew that Secretary of War position up so much. They could have found something. They did the same shit with Bill Clinton. It was another partisan hit job, just partisan bullshit. So both of them would be impeached, but both Bill and Andrew Johnson would be acquitted too. So there were 2 articles of impeachment charges for William Jefferson Clinton. One was perjury, and the other one was obstruction of justice. Both of these charges stem from Clinton getting a blowjob from Monica Lewinsky. He smoked that cigar after it came out of her snatch, right out of her cooter. No, I'm being serious. Bill Clinton put a cigar up Monica's vagina. He smoked it. And so I guess I don't even understand. Is that titillating? Was the wrapper on the, cigar? Did he want, like, some of her fluids on the thing? I don't understand. What would be the pleasure? If there was no paper on it, then, or if there was no plastic on it, then that means that could have, flakes could have flaked off. That would suck to have tobacco shoved up inside of you. And then he smoked it. So does that add something to it? If it got it wet, it would be harder to smoke. And so I just don't understand the, the penetration of a cigar. I mean, I guess it's, circular, dick-shaped, right? So there's that. And then smoking's gross, right? Tobacco. So I don't know, Bill. It's weird, right? It almost makes you not want to. There was some question they asked about something with Paula Jones. They asked if he had a relationship with her, and then when they found out that, there was a relationship, wasn't a relationship, they was like, all right, just answer all the questions. And so they got into, the entire thing. She said she had given Bill Clinton a blowjob, and he said that wasn't sex because he just thought sex was just vaginal sex, right? It's not mouth sex. Of course you could put your mouth on someone else's genitals. That's not sex. Sex is really just one thing, right? Dick in vagina, coitus, right? Penetration. That wasn't real sex, Monica. What are you thinking? And the court was like, well, let's think about this. Is it real sex or isn't it real sex? And this is the conversation that America was having in 1998. How sensational, right? How salacious. Listen to these details. Let's splash this shit all. Andrew Johnson got away with 11 charges, right? Basically taking the Secretary of War position back, giving it to his crony friends. They probably could have, what about cronyism? Couldn't you just say, Pussy Riot went to jail because of hooliganism? Hey, stop your hooliganism, or you're going to go to jail. Don't be a hooligan. If you're a hooligan in Putin's Russia, you're going to jail. So 2 other articles of impeachment. One was perjury, one was obstruction of justice. Those were the 2 charges for Bill Clinton. Then a second perjury charge and a charge of abuse of power were in the House, but they failed. So only 2 charges passes to the Senate. Now, the second perjury charge was voted down. That was the perjury charge that had stemmed from a sexual harassment lawsuit filed against Bill by Paula Jones. So he gets away with those lies. You have perjury and obstruction of justice charges. Those actually stem from Bill Clinton's testimony at Ken Starr's grand jury hearing. So he didn't get in trouble for the lie in the Paula Jones sexual harassment lawsuit testimony. He got in trouble for the grand jury hearing lie. Okay? So what lie are we talking about now? So Ken Starr is this asshole who is investigating Bill Clinton. He eventually produces the Starr report that talks about the cigar and the stain on the blue dress. And, oh my God, he got semen on her dress and then she kept it. I think that's the weirder part, right, that you would keep it. You may need this one day. I'm going to save this for evidence. I don't know. I mean, it's your sperm. That's you, right? You cannot deny it. Nuh-uh. She stole my sperm. Ken Starr got to go around asking all these personal questions about Bill Clinton's sex life. He was very much interested in his sex life. Who's he been? You know, Ken Starr didn't get no ass, so he was like, well, maybe he could vicariously live through Bill Clinton. And so apparently what had happened was the lie from the Paula Jones case came back up. He asked, and he was like, well, he's lying about this, relationship. And he suspected that he was lying, and so he put him on the grand jury so he could ask these kinds of questions. And it was something about what is the definition is. So the question was, do you all have a relationship? Something like that. It was, do you have a relationship with Monica Lewinsky? And Bill Clinton had answered, there's nothing going on. And that was his response. Oh, there's nothing going on with me and her. And he said, he did have a relationship with her, but so it depends on how you take that. There's nothing going on. He answered very vaguely, right? They do that shit intentionally. And he said there's nothing going on between him and Monica, which meant that at that time, at that moment, during that grand jury hearing, and he did it with closed circuit from the White House. So he's in the White House. I want to say the Oval Office, maybe. I don't know. But let's back up a little bit here. You had Ken Starr. The reason why he was testifying on this entire thing was because of the entire Whitewater affair. There was some, weird-ass dealings that was going on with Whitewater real estate venture in Arkansas. And then there was suspected cronyism in the firing of White House travel agency personnel. So Janet Reno goes ahead and who was nominated by Clinton, tells Ken Starr to investigate Bill Clinton for Whitewater scandal, investigate the Whitewater real estate venture in Arkansas and the suspected cronyism in the firing of the White House travel agency personnel. So that's where it started, right? Hey, wait a second. Did you make some weird, land deal in Arkansas making money you shouldn't have made? Well, let's study this. Did you fire the people in the travel agency, the White House? Okay, what's going on there? No, wait a second. What's this about a cigar? How did that get to that? Ken Starr's report cost the American taxpayers $70 million. $70 million to see where Bill Clinton's Willie went, right? And Slick Willie. He's known as the sex president. He's always going to be known as the sex president because of this witch hunt. This was a witch hunt. This absolutely was. Not like Donald Trump. There might be a little bit of a witch hunt there. It's close, but no cigar. The obstruction of justice charge for August 17th, 1998. August 17th, 1998, Bill Clinton became the first sitting president to testify before a grand jury. So he made history, right? The first sitting president. Why did he even sit down? Why would he be put under oath, right? They put him under oath, and then they asked him some other questions from some other shit that had nothing to do with the original thing, and then they caught him in that lie, or that, half lie, and then they went on and was like, hey, we caught you in a half lie. We're going to tie up all the American government in order to throw you out for that half lie. Then Donald Trump recently said that, go ahead, put me under oath, right, with this whole Comey, FBI, Russia investigation fucking debacle. Go ahead, put me under oath. That he won't do that. I'm sure his lawyers was like, no, don't do that. But his does it. I hope Donald Trump is put under oath and just says, you know what, that would actually put, get a lie detector test, and then, have it public, have it videotaped, and then released it to the whole world, right there. I told the truth, he didn't tell the truth, end of story. So he's questioned, and testified in the grand jury, he's put under oath, and then because of the nature of the questions that night, August 17th, 1998, Bill Clinton admits on national television that he had an inappropriate relationship with Monica Lewinsky. It's not a crime, right? You could cheat on your wife. You could cheat on your husband. It's mean. It goes against the sanctity of marriage and your sacred bond that you made by God, right? It's not nice. It's not good for the relationship, but it's also not a crime. It's not a crime. It's not a crime. What's weird about this, so August 17th, 1998, Bill Clinton says, hey, yeah, I fucked Monica, or, I got a blowjob from her. Did they fuck? I don't even know if they fucked. Okay, so I didn't get into the salacious details. Now I'm kind of curious. I know Bill O'Reilly, he masturbates with a dildo. He was like talking to one of his employees or something, and he was like, I got a big black dildo. So what would Bill O'Reilly be doing with, I think it was a black dildo. I don't think I made that up. I don't know, maybe. Is that some latent, I don't know. Well, anyways, he bombed Sudan. 3 days later. So August 20th, 1998, that's when the Al-Shifa plant, the pharmaceutical factory, was bombed in Sudan. He bombed Afghanistan. Tens of thousands of innocents in Sudan were killed because of this bomb. About this argument that we're making right now. Okay, Noam Chomsky said that 9/11 was a horrible tragedy, but it wasn't shit compared to the bombing in Sudan that Bill Clinton did 3 days after he admitted that he had a relationship with Monica. The press overseas called these the Monica missiles. So the Monica missiles blew up a pharmaceutical plant. It was a factory. They thought it was a chemical weapons factory. Turns out it's for pills. So it is chemicals, right, but they're making pills, and I think for malaria they had some life-saving stuff for the people. So the actual bombing killed a couple people that was in the factory at the time, but because the region needed the medicine, it killed tens of thousands of people. So are we even talking about that? How many, pharmaceutical plants are we bombing right now? How many other life-saving, ailments or that happened, right? He's testifying with Ken Starr over 4 hours from the White House on closed-circuit television, and that was the, grand finale for Kenneth Starr. He'd probably been waiting for that moment his entire life. He'd been investigating that Whitewater deal and the firing of the White House travel agency personnel, which was who would be the travel agency personnel, and how is that cronyism? He's allowed to fire them, isn't he? I don't know. So, and also examining allegations of sexual harassment. That's when he uncovered the affair of Bill and Monica Lewinsky. So that's when he goes for it. During the grand jury testimony, he asked the question. Bill Clinton gives that vague answer. There's nothing going on between him and Monica. And then they said, well, you said you had a relationship. And he was like, what's the definition of is? Did you mean is the relationship is at that time, or something stupid like that? It's actually an important question. He said it very vague. So is. Did you mean the relationship as that moment, right? If it was at that moment, there was nothing going on. Is that moment. But if is meant, did you have a relationship? I don't even know what the question is, so maybe I shouldn't explain it. But I understand the explanation. The explanation is, did they have the relationship as of that time, or did they ever have a relationship? And if they, ever had a relationship is, well, then he did not, tell the truth. But that isn't what he meant. What he meant was, did they have a relationship at that moment? So it was like, I gotcha. Nope, no, I left out a bunch of words. I got you. I gotcha. So that's the perjury charge that Bill Clinton was charged with. He denied under oath that he had a relationship with Monica Lewinsky. That stemmed from the testimony, Paula Jones sexual harassment trial. That's where Ken Starr found out in the testimony from the Paula Jones sexual harassment trial, probably that he lies, and the thing about the secret extramarital affair. And even though it had nothing to do with his Whitewater bullshit that he was studying, which I don't know anything about that, to be honest. But after, where'd that go? Where did the Whitewater thing go? These investigations just, it's like, well, we couldn't get him on Whitewater. What else can we get him on? And then that grand jury appearances, eventually, when he had to, Ken Starr accused the president of perjury and obstruction of justice, and that in turn prompted his grand jury appearance. So because he accused it, there had to be, I don't know, this is Attorney General that's turning on your own president. I think Bill Clinton could have got away with not doing any of this. Hey, I'm the fucking president. Hey, guy, I'm the fucking... Actually, Donald Trump goes under oath. He says so many flippant things back and forth, they'll catch him on something. He'll definitely perjure himself. Get Donald Trump under oath. Yes. He'll never do it, but especially if people are like, yeah, you want to be under oath? Okay. You can't be like that obvious. All right, you got to play it cool, boy. Play it cool. So Lindsey Graham, he was there at the Bill Clinton impeachment proceedings. Lindsey Graham was one of the 13 House Republicans who served on the Judiciary Committee, who were designated as managers at the Senate trial, which effectively made Lindsey Graham a prosecutor. He was a prosecutor against Bill Clinton in the Senate trial. Now, 2/3 is what they needed, which is 67, right? 100 senators, 66.6 rounds up, 67. That's how many senators. The senators, Lindsey Graham needed to get 67 senators to impeach Bill Clinton. For the perjury charge, the vote total was 45 votes for conviction and 55 against. So Bill Clinton outright beat that charge. The majority of the people voted against it. But it still wasn't 67, right? Wasn't even close to 67. Even 55 is not even close. So that was the perjury charge for lying to the grand jury, not the Paula Jones case. That was actually voted down. The House wasn't going to let the Senate actually, he might have been guilty on that one. But Bill Clinton beat that charge. They, 55 people, 55 senators was like, what is the definition of is? To be or not to be? Is, are, what is this? What is... So that he got away with the perjury charge, right, outright, because 55 voted in his favor, 45 against conviction. And then the obstruction of justice charge, this was leveled against Bill Clinton because he was being accused of inducing others to lie in order to conceal his affair with Monica. So it might be some of those, hey, it'd be really nice if you, lied about Monica. Or if you defended me, right? So they're like, hey, you can't go around bullying people. And that came up with 50 for the conviction and 50 against, which is a tie, right? Oh, he tied, but it still falls short of the 17 votes. They needed 67 votes, and they got 50. So therefore, none of this mattered. All this was for nothing. What a big fucking waste of time. This was huge ordeal, lots of cameras. It was painful to watch, really, and Bill Clinton's numbers actually went up. He became more popular because that's how the public perceived it, how it was. The public perceived it as being a partisan political hit job. He lied about this and that. It gets real fucking complicated, so the details get fuzzy, but ultimately he got a fucking blowjob from his intern, and then when he was in the testimony, he said that he didn't have a relationship with her. So why was that question even being asked? But who gives a shit, right? The question was asked, and then Ken Starr even makes a point about that, saying, well, he could have just invoked his Fifth Amendment, rights, but he just kept lying and lying. So, and I think Ken Starr had the blue dress, had the DNA, had, the testimony. So he had all this evidence piled up against him, and then he was just like, so, Bill, you and Monica fucking? And Bill was like, no, not right now. I mean, like, did we fuck before? I mean, right now. I'm sorry, I didn't understand the... Republican, I remember just having this like instinctual hatred for the Clintons. They were Democrats, right? So everything they did was horrible. And then I started to say, well, maybe they're not so bad, right? That maybe you had to triangulate in order to get some power. So Democrats have been failing, but when you're trying to be a moderate, if you try to go middle of the line, I don't know. And then I came back full circle, being against the war and imperialism. He was an imperialist. And that's really the big lesson that I think, when I think of the Bill Clinton impeachment proceedings, the rest of America doesn't think like this, but I think of the Monica missiles. I think of Operation Desert Fox. I think of the bombings that he was doing in order to get his name off the headlines, in order to distract the American public, or maybe it's just to make a point. I'm the fucking commander-in-chief. I got all this fucking, firepower. You're basically stopping me from being president with all this bullshit. It's ironic because the shit that he did. It's also weird that Hillary Clinton is going to say marriage is only between one man and one woman and one intern, right? She was against DOMA, gay people cannot get married. Even like after even after like it was the law of the land, it was like, I changed my mind too. What? So cheating on your spouse is not a fucking crime. It's not a fucking crime. It was a partisan hit job, and it was clear as day. And if you really think about the morality of the situation, he's the most powerful man in the entire fucking world. To think that the powerful rich man isn't getting a blowjob, here and there, good for him. If that helps him become fucking president, give that man another blowjob, right? Have a line of women that will just, if they want to, right? Consensual. I'm not saying anything but consensual. But that's my point, is that they're grown adults. They could do whatever they want. It was bad for Hillary and Bill's relationship, which was the point, too, since those two were sad to see how Hillary turned into such a huge conservative. She started out as a Goldwater girl, and I don't know if she used to be like an ultra-feminist. Her views on abortion is, up until 9 months. She don't have a limit at all. What about 10 months? Are you allowed to do it in 10 months? So, it's just kind of sad because she's this ultra, feminist. She goes to Arkansas. She has to take his name because she was too much of a feminist. If you're going to be married, you got to be married. Take Bill Clinton's name, so that's why you have Hillary Rodham Clinton. And then once she took Bill Clinton's name, then, he cheats on her and everybody knows all about it. And then they played her, I think, Tammy Wynette. Stand by your man, right? Mocking her. I've heard people, like, when she would go overseas, Monica! Just yelling Monica at her. It's pretty... Starts this, nationwide conversation about sex, about relationships, about marriages, about what's right, what's wrong. And I remember being a young Republican, right? Blind Republican, sorry, whatever. I have, I'm a recovering Republican Catholic. And so, going to this, where am I at now? Partisan hit job. Everybody knew what was going on. So we had this big, long conversation about, so what's the crime? The crime, I think, is in between them two. There's a private agreement between Hillary and Bill, and they said that we're going to do this, and you're not going to be fucking other people, and they have their own private agreement. So then this extramarital affair comes up. Now it's up to them to sort of either work it out or to separate and go their separate ways, right? It's up to them to decide what they want to do. The public had nothing to do with any of this shit. And if he wanted to get a blowjob, I don't blame him for that. Now, Hillary, yeah, that might be sad, but then she gets this, wellspring of support, like, oh, poor Hillary, right? She got cheated on. Hillary didn't do nothing. I don't know. Chris Rock, he had said that it was her fault. She should have been like, hey, I got this dick, right? Hillary knows that Bill needs his medicine. Well, Hillary was not doing her job, according to Chris Rock. And then how Hillary treated, Monica. Monica got lambasted. So Dave Chappelle had a joke about he didn't know how powerful the president was until, just a blowjob. Monica Lewinsky gave the president a blowjob, and now that's fucking national news? That's what we all need to be talking about? Like, I guarantee you, I don't know. I mean, maybe you might be nervous, right? The leakers. There's all the leakers in the White House. And so maybe Obama wasn't fucking anybody. Maybe Obama didn't have any interns on the side. Maybe he didn't have any side hoe, right? Politically, Hillary could get some sympathy, but I think if you look underneath the surface, once she forgives Bill and then says, here's how we're going to deal with this, then she stood by her man, and she, basically smeared all these women that had said that Bill had done all this shit, right, with Paula Jones and Monica. And Monica, she got treated really shitty, and that's crazy. Like, I mean, a blowjob, that's how powerful the president is. Just, one blowjob, and that's who Monica Lewinsky is going to be known for the rest of her life. So his poll numbers actually went up because of this bullshit impeachment proceedings, this very, one-sided partisan hit job with a very weak case, a half lie for the perjury, obstruction of justice, he bullied some people or something. I mean, I'd have to look more into it to see if there was obstruction of justice. They're saying, just suggested, hey, I hope you do. Bill Clinton bombed Sudan and Afghanistan a few days after he admitted to the nation on TV that he had cheated on Hillary. Yep, got a blowjob from Monica. Now we're going to go kill a bunch of Sudanese, right? Bomb a bunch of Sudanese. Tens of thousands of Sudanese were killed. Now, during those 4 days that the House was deliberating, check this out, this is true, in December 1998, I think it's like 15th, 16th, 17th, and the 18th. So the House is deliberating on Bill Clinton's impeachment. Bill Clinton just started bombing the shit out of Iraq, just started bombing them out of fucking nowhere. He called it Operation Desert Fox. And later on, as soon as the impeachment proceedings were over, then he stopped bombing. And they was like, well, Mr. President, why'd you stop bombing? And then Bill Clinton said, well, my objectives were achieved. What were your objectives? To distract the fucking media so that we had two separate headlines, impeachment proceedings, bombing. Details, Operation Desert Fox. It's actually ironically named. You had Rommel. Erwin Rommel was nicknamed the Desert Fox, so that's a Nazi. So we called the operation, give the name of a Nazi. The operation, the name of a Nazi. So Bill Clinton would blame Saddam Hussein of Iraq, right? Same guy. He said he would lie, saying that Saddam wasn't letting the UN weapons inspectors in. So you had, right, the first Iraq war pushed them out of Kuwait, but we didn't take Iraq and Baghdad, but we had no fly zone. You're allowed to, these UN weapons inspectors are allowed to inspect all your country, make sure you're not building any fucking weapons, Saddam. You better not have any goddamn weapons, Saddam, right? So that's what was going on during the 90s, but Bill Clinton said Saddam wasn't letting the weapons inspectors in, and he needs to be bombed for that. He addressed this. Guess what? Saddam did let the UN weapons inspectors in, and it pissed all the, weapons inspectors off about this shit because Bill Clinton spun this like it was pretty masterful in a way that he did it. He actually ordered the weapons inspectors to leave. He said, hey, for your safety, we're going to be bombing you, so just for your safety, you might want to, hit the road. And so they left. They left for their own safety. And then as soon as they left, then, he says, well, they're not even letting the UN inspectors in. No, you ordered them out, Bill. Bill, you fucking ordered them out. Then you blamed the inspectors not being there on Saddam, even though it was, the United States government that fucking did it. So that's why the UN inspectors weren't in Iraq, because the UN told them not to be there. And the U.S. needed some bullshit pretense to just start bombing at the president's pleasure at a moment. Desert Fox was all about the optics. It was about the newspaper headlines, just like the Afghanistan, the Sudan bombings that Bill Clinton had ordered in August of 1998, a few months prior to Operation Desert Fox, to feed the media machine, the 24-hour news cycle. He was a cornered rat. He was a corrupt fucking president, and he was cornered over some dumb shit. So, it sucks. When I think about the impeachment of Bill Clinton, it forces me to defend this asshole when he's an imperialist fucker. So the ironic thing is the shit that he was doing during the impeachment proceedings, the Operation Desert Fox, 2 American soldiers are going to die, and 1,400 Iraqis were killed in December of 1998. And then Bernie Sanders is going to sign the Iraqi Liberation Act. So actually he was all about letting Bill Clinton do this that year, the next year, the year after that. And then this sets up the Iraq War. It says a song, Bombs Over Baghdad. And the Bombs Over Baghdad was when he was in London, touring or doing whatever it is, 3000, Andre 3000 do. Whatever he was doing at the time, Bombs Over Baghdad. So Bombs Over Baghdad, that is Bill Clinton. That was Bill Clinton dropping bombs on Baghdad. So eventually, right, the American people, we got used to it. We kept dropping bombs over there. We didn't even hear about the shit, and then now, we're fucking invading. Hell, we've been bombing them. We invaded them before, and then we were bombing them, intermittently every once in a while. So in December of 1998, when Bill Clinton was being impeached for 4 fucking days, he was bombing. 2 American soldiers died, and then 1,400 Iraqi soldiers is what we're told, and I guess I'm just supposed to believe it, they were all killed, December of 1998. Those are fucking war crimes. Those are war crimes. He did that without a declaration of war. He just did it just to be doing it, and it was totally for the optics. That's a kind of genius thing, what Bill Clinton did. These bombings were war crimes that Bill Clinton should have been impeached over. Not the bullshit about the blowjob, the murder, the killing of human life. That's the shit that he should have been fucking impeached over. As soon as the impeachment proceedings were over, he was, December 19th, 1998 is the day Bill Clinton was officially the second president to have ever been impeached. And then that's also the same day he stopped the bombing. You could not be any more clear, right? Why'd you stop bombing him? All the objectives were achieved. What were those? Did we conquer Iraq? We won. We won the Iraq War. Operation Desert Fox was a success. Bill Clinton couldn't have been more transparent. And basically, Bill Clinton had a videotape clip of him saying, "I'm bombing Iraq because I don't want the American people to watch these impeachment proceedings." That's how you couldn't be any more transparent if he had criticized, say, "Oh, this is such a long thing." Jimmy Dore. Impeachment proceedings are a big fucking deal. And it wasn't good for Bill. It wasn't good for anybody. There wasn't anybody saying, well, but Gore is more liberal, right? Oh, my God, we're going to get Gore. Gore's going to unionize, get all the Democrats, and then everybody's going to love him, and then he's going to be... Nobody was saying that shit. They're like, yeah, let's just go after him. It's a partisan hit job. It's all bullshit, flimsy case. Sure, fuck it, why not? And we got real shit. We got real fucking crimes. Okay, so... While impeaching Bill Clinton didn't materialize into a conviction, in the court of public opinion, Americans still know Bill Clinton as the sex president. It's also kind of like the Benghazi hearings against Hillary. The Republicans put a ton of time and effort into these ordeals, and while they failed to win the battle in the short run, in the long run, in the war of public opinion, the Republicans won. The Monica missiles killed tens of thousands of Sudanese innocent civilians that did not deserve to die. And 2 Americans and 1,400 Iraqis were killed in Operation Desert Fox. What did those 2 Americans do? Why did they deserve to die? Why did those 1,400 Iraqis deserve to die? Kissinger said basically it was pointless. What he did made no sense. And yet, what Americans remember about Bill Clinton's impeachment hearings is that fucking cum stain on a blue dress. That damn cigar, right? So while they failed to remove Bill, while they did not throw Hillary in jail over Benghazi, instead, the American people remembered the word Benghazi and perjury when it came to Bill Clinton, so they wouldn't be elected next time. It was a public relations effort to ruin their good name, ruin their reputations, to say that they had a good name. When I look at it, when I look at the welfare bill, when I look at the 3 strikes, the crime bill, when I think about the imperialism, he was basically a fucking right-wing imperialist, corporatist, like, what the fuck? He deregulated the industry, got rid of Glass-Steagall. So he very much was right-wing Republican. No wonder the Republicans that, couldn't figure Bill Clinton out. He was like Teflon. He basically was a conservative, and then when he presented all these ideas, I bet he tried to do middle of the road, right? He tried to be their friends like Obama did. So, Benghazi. And Benghazi is some bullshit that you should remember, but the Clinton impeachment, the blowjob and all that, it's stupid, it's bullshit, and it was a waste of time. So that's why if you go to impeach, you cannot impeach for some bullshit partisan hit job. It's got to be a real crime, like murder. Murders are crime. Thank you for sticking with me. Now we're on to Richard Milhouse Nixon. Okay, so he did not get impeached. Nixon actually usually doesn't even get talked about during, the impeachment comparisons of presidents. But the Judiciary Committee in the House had approved 3 articles of impeachment, and then those 3 charges, which were obstruction of justice, abuse of power, and contempt of Congress, they were leveled against him, and then he resigned. And so even though he wasn't impeached and there wasn't a Senate conviction, because the Judiciary Committee had approved it, so therefore it was going to be introduced into the House. The ball is going to be put in motion. Nixon found out about it. He resigned, gives the presidency to Gerald Ford, gets his pardon, and then, does his signing off with his 2 peace signs. I'm not a crook. Obstruction of justice, abuse of power, contempt of Congress. I kind of like contempt of Congress. Hey, you don't like Congress, do you? You hate them so much you have contempt. Abuse of power, right, which had been failed under Clinton. Obstruction of justice, we see that one again, too. One of the tapes that Nixon had released had an 18-and-a-half-minute gap in it, so that's obstruction of justice, right? You deleted the tape. So this happened July 27th, 29th, and the 30th of 1974. So he got 3 charges. I guess one for each day, right? And so in the middle of his presidency, you have the Judiciary Committee that lays down these 3 charges against him, and then 10 days afterwards, on August 9th, 1974, Nixon resigned. Media and the public, they're not going to have old Nixon to kick around anymore. So he resigns 10 days after those impeachment proceedings were inevitable, after the Judiciary Committee had recommended 3 charges. And then VP, the Vice President, Gerald Ford, becomes president. A month later, Gerald Ford pardons Richard Nixon for any and all wrongdoing, so allowing tyranny to happen and showing the path for any other president. If you want to get out, this is how you do it, right? You can go ahead and bomb the shit out of everybody, quit, make Mike Pence president, be like, hey, get a pardon, just wash your hands and get the hell out of Dodge. So while no president, no American president has ever been removed out of office from the impeachment process, Nixon was forced to resign, and that is a victory in of itself. We saw the impeachment proceedings, and Richard Nixon knew the jig was up. Nope, sorry Nixon, you cannot pass go. You cannot collect $200. So that was a victory in of itself to force him to resign. You didn't even have to do the impeachment proceedings. In fact, that's what they were telling Bill Clinton. They were like, okay, he's either going to be impeached, but it would just save the time. Just go ahead and resign, Bill. It's just easier if you just quit. And then he's doing press conferences. I will not resign. And the politics of divisiveness and vile hatred, personal destruction, we've got to quit this. We've got to quit. That's my... I'm Bill Clinton, and I approve this message. I did not have sex with that woman, Miss Lewinsky. But I did bomb the shit out of lots of people who didn't deserve it. And Bernie voted with me. Thank you, Bernie. Nixon resigns August 9th, 1974. After he gets his pardon, there's going to be midterm elections. So that's going to put a big stank, right? That's going to have a big stank all over that election. So, of course, the Democrats had made gains. There was sweeping gains. The Democratic Party turned voter dissatisfaction into large gains in the House elections. They took 49 seats from the Republican Party, which increased their majority to 291 out of the 435. So 291. 291. This is one more than the number that they needed for a 2/3 majority, the number necessary to override a presidential veto. So they had a veto-proof majority. That's how popular the impeachment and the resignation of Nixon was. That's how popular. You have 2/3 majority. Not only is it veto-proof, but you can propose a constitutional amendment, apparently. Okay, so they could produce, propose constitutional amendments. They could override presidential vetoes. And then the 94th Congress overrode the highest percentage of vetoes since Andrew Johnson was president. So Johnson would veto it, and you had apparently Gerald Ford would veto it, but Congress did as they wanted, right? They just steamrolled right over Gerald Ford. And Gerald Ford's president, right? Oh, you can't impeach Nixon, right, Jimmy Dore? If you impeach Nixon, you're just going to get us Gerald Ford. He's more conservative. He's more right-wing. He's more sensible. He's going to unite the Republicans. Oh, my God, I'm so scared. Gerald Ford's going to be president. And then Nixon's such a douche, right? We could just kick Nixon around. But we can't kick Gerald around. And he trips off a fucking, bus. Impeachment proceedings against Richard Nixon in 1974 was good for the Democrats in the midterm elections. And it was good for the presidency. This was good for the Democrats. This is a good thing. Jimmy Dore, pay attention. Pay attention, Jimmy Dore. Nixon resigns Gerald Ford, whose maiden name was Leslie King, just interesting fact, he finishes Nixon's term, and then Jimmy Carter becomes the president in '76. Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter. Okay? Just like Mike Pence would become the president, he wouldn't be reelected. Just like Gerald Ford wasn't reelected. This is exactly how it would go down. The impeachment proceedings of Richard Nixon also led to the House Democrats taking 49 seats away from the Republicans in the midterm elections. This is good for the party, it's good for the House, good for the presidency. If you're a here, Jimmy Dore right now, if we impeach Nixon, we're just going to get Gerald Ford. Chill out. Gerald Ford's not that fucking scary there. Mike Pence he looks stupid as fuck, I'll be honest. He looks dumb. He seems like he might be polite, but he is dumb. So, while Jimmy Dore, he ignores basically everything. He would have said that in 1974. If we impeach Nixon, we'll just get Gerald Ford. He ignores how impeaching Nixon had got first, it got rid of Nixon. And secondly, after Gerald Ford, the next election, it got us Jimmy Carter. So even though impeaching Trump would give us Pence, only briefly, ultimately, it would get us President Bernie Sanders. Because of the same reason how we got Jimmy Carter. The same reason why Gerald Ford didn't get reelected. That's why Mike Pence won't get reelected. A peanut farmer became president, right? A peanut farmer who never bombed any country, which shows great restraint for an American president, who wanted to decriminalize marijuana. Jimmy Carter ran, that was one of his issues, decriminalize marijuana. And he won. He won, a peanut farmer. And then also the Democrats took 49 seats from the Republican Party in the '74 midterm elections, increasing their majority to a veto-proof majority, 291 of the 435 houses. It was popular. It was exciting. It gave the opposition so much momentum. In 2017, right now, the GOP leads in the House with 239 seats, which would be 59 less seats than the Democrats had in 1974. The Democrats had 291 seats. Can you imagine if we actually had that right now? The party has absolutely no fucking power whatsoever. None. None. They don't control the House. They don't control the Senate. They're principled opposition. They're basically beggars. Please don't, please fund our district shit. Don't fuck us over so bad that, they're doing all this secret shit, writing the TPP, writing the health care bill all in secret. So the GOP has 239 seats, which is the majority, but they still had 52 less seats than what the Democrats had. And that should also tell you something else, right? 291. So that means if the Republicans were to gain that much during the House, they could get a veto-proof majority too. They won't. It's not even a possibility. I don't even know why I said it. But 291, they had a veto-proof majority. You can't veto anything we fucking do, President. You've got to sign or just be like, I'm not signing that. It still becomes law. The War Powers Resolution of 1973 was passed. It overrode Nixon's veto, and some people say there's an issue with that. I don't think, why is there an issue with that? 2/3 overrode it, so therefore it's the fucking law. Okay, he didn't put his signature. He's being a baby about it, but it's the fucking law. It's the law. Sorry, there, Nixon. He's the one that started the war on drugs. Fucking prick, throwing people in jail for 100 years over a joint to go after blacks and activists. That's fucking Nixon. And he was like the last liberal president we had. He'd give us the EPA and block grants and some other shit. So Andrew Johnson, he was also had impeachment proceedings leveled against him, right? This is just bad. Impeachment proceedings against that person and their political party is bad for that person and that political party. No shit. Jimmy Dore, why the fuck did I gotta tell you this? Fuck. No shit, Sherlock. Duh. Impeachment proceedings are a big... Fuck's sake, Jimmy Dore. Impeachment proceedings are a big deal. Democrats have absolutely zero power right now. But to go from zero power and no presidency to the presidency in both houses, yeah, the Democratic Party has their fucking issues. I'm a Green Party member myself. I'm not even part of the Democratic Party. But when you look at this, it's easier to think in binary, right? But as a independent myself, there's a lot more things that are going on. With a veto-proof majority, that Congress, depending on what their philosophy is, you could propose constitutional amendments to make health care a human right. You could get free college for everybody, institute ranked choice voting for all of our elections across the nation, right? We could actually get true blue democracy with a veto-proof majority. We could do the sky's the limit, whatever we want. But right now, liberals, lefties, progressives have a perfect analogy. It's pretty fucking close. It's pretty fucking close. Nixon was impeached halfway through his presidency, as Trump would be, right, after the November 6, 2018 midterms. Filing for the articles of impeachment against Nixon forced him to resign, and that turned out very badly for the Republicans for midterm elections and for the next presidential election. Of course, impeaching the president is bad for the fucking president that's being impeached, as any sane person would expect it to be. So we would go from, if we had the courage to impeach Trump for war crimes, we would go to the left of center people from having zero power to all the power, all of it, and Bernie Sanders for all you fucking Bernie Sanders fanatics or equivalent. I'd prefer Jill Stein. She's never actually voted to bomb anybody or to fund war. The socialists of America, if you're brave enough to impeach Trump, the world can be our oyster. Workers of America, unite. So Nixon was impeached halfway through his presidency. That has, midterm elections, and it's the same shit. Halfway through his presidency, Gerald Ford jumps in there, and then Jimmy Carter wins. And the Congress, Gerald Ford had to fight with the Congress, so he didn't get much, done. Gerald Ford, we got Gerald Ford in the short term, but ultimately impeaching Nixon got us Jimmy Carter in 1976. That was the next election. Gerald Ford only finished out Nixon's term, and then he was put out to pasture, in some place upstate New York. That's what would happen if we impeached Trump. Pence would be there briefly, and then Bernie Sanders or Jill, the progressive equivalent of Bernie. Okay, so it would be, Trump is exactly what this country needed, so we could resist and, impeach, so we could throw him out on his ass for war crimes. We let Bush get away with it. We let Obama get away with it. Fuck the war. Fuck the war. Why are we going to let Trump get away with it? Why would we do that? And then each one of them had a re-election. So some people could say that even though Obama and W had committed war crimes, the American people loved it, and they re-elected them in. Trump doesn't have that. Trump is the one that has power now. Trump is the one, somebody says, well, if you're going to impeach Trump, you got to impeach all these other presidents too. That's what I have to do to impeach Trump. I got to impeach all these other presidents. No, I don't have to. But if I had a person who shot somebody and they got away with it, right? There was a murder in the neighborhood and they got away with it. And they got away with it, right? So an unfortunate tragedy, somebody shot somebody else, and that person's dead, but the person who shot them, they got away scot-free, right? They got away scot-free. If, like Candace Hiltz in Fremont County, right? Whoever killed Candace Hiltz got away with it. So the next time that a murder happens, do you say, well, shit, we didn't find Candace's murders, right? We didn't arrest anybody for who killed Candace. We never found out who they were. We never arrested anybody. So fuck it. We can't do nothing now, right? We set a precedent. If we find this person's murderer, then we got to find all these other person's murderers. It makes no sense whatsoever. It makes no sense. If they're doing wrong right now, you can stop it. You stop the war by stopping the war that's going on right now. Okay, impeaching or throwing Bush in jail right now, that doesn't stop the fucking war. Trump is all over Africa. He's bombing all over the world. Nobody knows. You don't know what he's doing. Nobody knows what he's doing. So with the Pence crowd, you deal with one problem at a time. Okay, it seems like it's so easy, but that's how I see the world in terms of oppressed and oppressors. So it just makes sense that you got to resist. You have to resist for your own soul, for your own. Okay, Mr. President, do you see the cabinet where everybody's kissing his ass? What a bunch of stupid. Do you see them as men? Do you see them as people? They're just ass kissers. That's all they are, just a bunch of ass kissers. And that's what the entire nation is supposed to be? Yeah, he's the fucking president, meaning he can sign legislation and shit and sign treaties and do all the powers that a president has to do. But if he comes up to me And if he wants to push me like he did that fucking shit in Montenegro, that Montenegro could have knocked him out. Self-defense. Don't put your hands on me. What the fuck you putting your hands on me for? Self-defense. You put your hands on me. So you can't just be like, hey, pick up that piece of trash. No. Walking down the wrong road. Seriously, think about this. If you're walking down the wrong road, okay, so I'm in Colorado right now. If I say, okay, I'm going to go to Canada, right, pull a Huck Finn, right? I'm going to go to Canada, and instead of walking north, I start walking south. I'm going the exact opposite direction. Well, when should I turn around? Should I turn around once I get to Oklahoma? How about if I get to Texas? No, just go to Mexico. How about when I'm in fucking Guatemala? How about when I'm in goddamn Brazil? How about when I get to the goddamn fucking Antarctica? Should I turn around when I'm in Antarctica? Should I just go around the whole fucking world just because I don't want to admit that I'm wrong? If you're going down the wrong road, it's never too late to turn around. It's never too late to turn around. If I was in Mexico, if it took me that far, it would be better still for me to turn around and I'd get to Canada quicker than if I kept going the wrong direction. So that's why we should impeach Trump for war crimes. The point, again, we get Mike Pence briefly, just like we got Gerald Ford briefly, but then we got Jimmy Carter, i.e. Bernie Sanders. So the same kind of dealings, the same kind of push and pull, the same sort of, throughout history, liberals want to change shit, conservatives want to keep shit the same. So that push and pull is just going to keep on, pushing and pulling. So Jimmy Dore, I hope you pay attention to this. I'm sure you won't. You're too important to listen to us peasants out here. I'm a huge fan of Jimmy Dore. In fact, Kyle Kalinske and Jimmy Dore are the only two people I could even stomach listening to up until the end of the election. And now that we're here, right, I guess they both had their careers. One's a radio station guy or a YouTube guy, and the other is a comedian. So they're going to keep on doing their thing. But now I'm just kind of like, well, fuck. Jill Stein is not too. And I watched Seth Meyers. And, I get a laugh. It's cathartic, but I do it with reservation. Seth Meyers was one who insulted Donald Trump at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. That insulted Donald Trump, said he had a fox on his head, and Obama was laughing at him. He was, probably humiliated. How dare you tell me that Donald, how dare you make fun of me? And then apparently a lot of people speculate that was the night when he was like, fuck it, I got to run for president, right? They think I'm just this, reality TV show host. Dennis Rodman is going to North Korea right now to solve the whole, nuclear fucking tension with all the Korea. Dennis Rodman is going to go ahead and solve that situation for everybody. But what I was saying was MSNBC, they endorsed Hillary. MSNBC is a corporation, a corporate fucking corporation who backed Hillary through and through, right? Rachel Maddow laughed at all the third party, Jake Tapper, fucking Chuck Todd, all them motherfuckers did not give a shit about Jill Stein and Bernie Sanders, right? They was like, Hillary, cheerleaders for Hillary. And most, guess what Trump said today? That's all the fucking discussion that they had offered. Now, MSNBC is having record fucking ratings. Now, Seth Meyers is having incredible ratings. Colbert, Daily Show. All these are having incredible fucking ratings. Young Turks. Oh, how fucking convenient for you protest industry motherfuckers. You don't actually want to change shit. You just want to talk about changing shit. And then when, if it actually gets worse, that's good for you. You know what Jon Stewart had said, make my job tougher. Make it tougher. I want to see my country get better, okay? I'm not just trying to get the quick laugh so that way I could go around to these nightclubs and get another gig. This is Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore had said that, God, Trump is a gift. We need to keep Trump propped up. He's so stupid. He says all these things with the tweets, and he's going to mess up. Trump is a gift. But if you impeach Trump, you're going to get pinched, right? He goes along with that shit. Jimmy Dore just wants to keep Donald Trump propped up like a scarecrow that he can just throw tomatoes at. Because it's funny. Look, I throw tomatoes at that scarecrow. He just wants to prop him up so he could, make his jokes and shit. But that's the thing. That's my problem that I have with him is as a citizen, I don't want my president to keep fucking up. He's got the nuclear codes. Is that the next fuck up, right? A nuclear apocalypse. That would be good electorally for the Democrats. I mean, bad for humanity, but good for the Democrats. Deny climate change. Let's go ahead and just global warming is just going to boil half of us alive. Who gives a shit, right? World War III apocalypse is upon us. But, I guess we are going to need to laugh then, right? So I guess, again, Jimmy Dore just keeps creating jobs for himself. He's a comedian, and that's another thing. Maybe that's my fault. Maybe it's the job of the media or everybody else, but because I have nobody else to listen to that, speaks to my interests and speaks to my values, that I am forced to listen to a YouTuber and a comedian in order to get my political message. But John Oliver was like, I'm not a journalist, I'm a comedian, so I'm after the joke. While we do dense material, ultimately is to make you laugh. That's what we're doing, is to make you laugh. So for, John Oliver, it's just, he'll shit all over Jill Stein for a fucking laugh, like an ass. Donald Trump plunging the entire world into a nuclear holocaust. While that would be great, electorally speaking, for the Democrats in the midterms. Wow, they would sweep the... I mean, can you imagine, right, if the entire half the world is in ashes and ruins? I mean, Donald would probably get the blame for, the nuclear war that started. So, great for Democrats. Great for Jimmy Dore to keep on making us laugh as the world just keeps burning. But that's not responsible. It's not good for our country. And fuck that shit. Fuck that shit. And another thing is, Trump isn't a total buffoon. He got Gorsuch fucking, he got a Supreme Court justice on the Supreme Court. That's going to be a Trump nominee. He might even get statues and, roads and shit named after him. So he isn't a total buffoon. So he's got a shadow war right now in 33 African countries. We're bombing 7 or 8 other countries. Trump is as stupid and unstable and as incompetent as Jimmy Dore says that he is. Then do we really want Trump to keep a hold of the reins of power for all 4 years of his presidency? He's the most powerful man in the world right now. The Army, the Navy, the Marines, the NSA. But we're going to make sure he keeps that power. So he fucks it all up, and then we could turn that fuck up. I don't know. I think, like, some of that I agree with. Yeah, let's have some fuck up so we can go after, but I don't want the country to go down. I don't want to see the country to go. I want America to become great for the first time. That's what I want. So my guess is that Jimmy Dore doesn't want to impeach him because, one, he's scared to say something like that. He's the most powerful man in the world, right? He's scared of the most powerful man in the world, but he's a fucking bully. So stand up to this bully and impeach the bastard. Impeach him. Don't be scared, Jimmy Dore. I think you just want us to like you and for us to keep paying you. Remember one episode of the Jimmy Dore show where he started talking about hotels in the Middle East or something? I want to say Israel, Palestine. He's like, wait, he's got hotels there? So he actually could pay me to do a gig with these hotels. So Jimmy Dore started thinking about, as a comedian, as a capitalist, as a businessman, well, shit, if you got a hotel, then he can play to the room, and then, look, he's got a gig, right? Gigs are hard to come by. Wow, you got a room for me to play in front of? So as a whore, as a capitalist whore, Jimmy Dore, for a moment, looked like he was actually considering that playing at one of Trump's hotels for a comedy gig would have been okay. As Kathy Griffin had said, Trump is great for comedians, but is horrible for citizens. So Jimmy Dore is going to let Trump keep all of his power so Trump can keep on playing with his virtually unlimited military power for 4 years. Trump is going to be using our boys and soldiers as his play toys. He's got virtually unlimited military power. We're going to let him keep all that power, all that access. Let him play around with nuclear warheads. He's wondering, hey, why don't we use nukes? Why do we have them if we don't use them? He says that he might have to drop a nuke on ISIS. He may have to do that. So do that is what Jimmy Dore is saying. Let Trump have his, let him have his cake and let, fat boy Trump eat it too. Don't buck him. No fight. No resistance in any way. That's knuckin' futz. That is so knuckin' futz, Jimmy. Impeachments are embarrassing things. It's the nation's highest civil servant being put on trial. A significant loss of confidence will result in him and in the party. It'll be broadcast on national television. And if it's for war crimes, it's bad for war. End the fucking war. We can end the fucking war if you do what I say. Don't do what Jimmy Dore says, okay? He's a comedian trying to make some fucking money, throw tomatoes at a scarecrow, right? That's what he'd rather do. I mean, Mike Pence, you might actually have to research and see what the hell he's going to fuck up too. Shit, he's human. Are you kidding? So impeaching Trump would be bad for Trump. It would be bad for the Republican Party. It would be bad for the war machine. And it would be bad for every single fucking warmonger, every president that wants to be a warmonger from here till eternity. Impeaching Trump would be bad for all that. The war machine, for war in the future. To the Republican Party, if Mike Pence fucking does the same shit, then the Republican Party is done for. So don't be comfortable with that man sitting in that fucking throne, in that room, in that building, in that city. To keep your humanity, to keep your soul, you've got to resist. You've got to resist. You must resist oppression. If you don't resist oppression, then you become a tool of the oppressor. You've got to resist. Don't give up your minds or your souls or your body to these machine men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are men. If you're afraid of Pence becoming president, if you don't resist, Pence will be president. For sure. For 8 fucking years. Because if we don't resist, if you get comfortable with Donald Trump as the president, then just get comfortable with Donald Trump being president for another 4 years, for 8 years total. And then 8 years of Pence, and then 8 years of Ryan. And it'd be 24 fucking years of Republican rule. Just because you fucking snowflakes are scared of tossing a warmonger out on his consequences of impeaching, or just as drastic of not impeaching. If you don't impeach, if you're like, well, he's our president, let's work with him, let's sign his bills, help him get his little cabinet together, let's just help him, do his thing. You get fucking used to that shit. He's bombing people right now. He's bombing schools and hospitals all across the world, murdering children, murdering innocent, non-combatant civilians. If you don't resist, that's what's going to happen. If you don't resist, you'll get 8 years of Donald Trump, 8 years of Mike Pence, and 8 years of Paul Ryan, 24 fucking years of Republicans from here on out. They got all the power. They have all the power, every bit of it. The left, the liberals, y'all got to get your shit together, and the problem is that the Hillary Clinton fucking people have not learned their lesson. They want to wag and be bigger dicks. Fuck you. You're going to lose if you do that. You're going to fucking lose. So impeach Trump. That's how you're a progressive. You're a litmus test for when it comes to environment. If you're in favor of fracking, fuck you. If you're in favor of fracking, then you'll probably fucking pollute anybody and everybody and not even give a shit about anyone. So just like Hillary fracking fucking Clinton, being in favor of fracking it's causing earthquakes. So even though fracking, it seems like in limited uses, there might be some circumstances that it could be used, but we need a moratorium until we figure out what's going on. We need a moratorium on fracking. That's my litmus test for the environment. This is my litmus test for whether or not you're a true blue progressive. I'm just going to call you anti-impeachers or pro-impeachers. If I come across a Republican who says, yes, impeach Trump, well, shit, you're better than half of these goddamn Bernie Sanders and Jill Stein supporters that I met up on Facebook. You're in favor of impeaching Trump? Oh, so you understand the nature of oppression. Somebody may said, well, I don't respect the man, but I respect the man, but I don't respect the office. No, I don't respect that man. I don't respect that man in that office, and I won't be happy until we put another man in that office, okay? Every 4 years we get this election and shit, but guess what? People get fucking reelected, right? 8 years of Bush, 8 years of Obama, 8 years of Trump. Are you ready for 8 years of Trump? Because you're not ready to resist right now. He's bombing people. He's killing people right now. But you want to play political fucking games with this shit? So, for the Syrian girl that's about to get a fucking bomb hit on her face, why don't you tell her your little electoral strategy? Look, little girl, we're going to let Trump continue to bomb here and there. We're not going to impeach him. Just because you don't want to toss out an American fucking tyrant, a despot, a king, out on his ass over war crimes. You're fucking scared. You're scared. And it is scary. I mean, I might have to confront Trump and be like, hey, you need to be impeached. And that will, the only concession that I'll make is to the butt Pence people, my way will kick Trump out on his ass. It'll embarrass the Republican Party. It will stop war crimes from happening and possibly all war together. But we may get Pence for a short, brief 1-2 years of time. He'll have to pick up the pieces, right? They'll be embarrassed. He'll have to work with the progressive Congress, and he'll have to tread lightly. He cannot fuck up. My way, we get Pence for a very short time. And then we get a President Bernie Sanders and a revolutionary Congress. But your fucking way, Jimmy Dore, gets us President Pence for 8 fucking years. Your way gets us GOP controlling the White House for the next 24 years. Impeaching Donald Trump would be unforgettable, but not impeaching Trump is unforgivable. My way gets us the House, it gets us the Senate, it gets us the Supreme Court, it gets us President Tulsi Gabbard. We get our government back and we actually get to make America great for the first time. My way stops Donald Trump. My way stops war forever. And never and ever and ever. What fucking president is going to cross that threshold of committing war crimes? And if we can impeach a president over war crimes, we could pass a fucking law that ends the goddamn war. What? We didn't declare a war, right? Congress, men and women, we didn't declare a war. So then, therefore, there is no war. And if you're conducting war, you're conducting an illegal war. Impeaching Trump would be unforgettable. Not impeaching Trump is unforgivable.